All right, we should be getting started.
Do
Oh,
what we do and how we do it.
that's what we do. Boy, I look dark all of a sudden back there.
Yeah, how did that happen?
How did
And
that?
and a little
What
bit
is
red too.
what's going on?
I don't know.
Hey, anyways,
It is what it is.
most people are listening to it anyways. I look a little creepy. Welcome to Over 50 Starting Over. I'm Barry Edwards.
And I'm Merle Garrison.
All right. We are. How you been fending off the zombie apocalypse? Everything
Yeah,
going
it's
okay?
funny you call it the zombie apocalypse. I've heard that several times now.
Is that
and
right?
yeah, and it's kind of true. I mean, I was at the supermarket last Saturday, and it was just shocking in there because for the first time that I can ever remember, there was like nothing on the shelves. It was like locusts had come through there, and the people would not stop running into me like with their carts. They weren't looking where they were going, and
Oh my God.
they seemed like they were all in a daze. Like
I swear it's a sheer panic.
they couldn't see me. I mean, how do you not see me? I'm a huge dude. Like,
I
what are you
know.
doing?
Yeah.
So, but other than that, Anne Marie and I, we were able to. I went there by myself, and I was kind of glad I was by myself on this one
Mhm.
because it was shocking. And when I'm with Anne Marie, she's sort of. She's more emotional than I am, and it would have just intensified everything. So my whole thing was, let's just find what I can find. She had a list for me, and I got alternatives to almost everything that was on the list,
Mm.
and then get the heck on out of there,
Oh yeah.
and but we were able to stock up and get enough food and supplies where we could stay inside. And the other thing too is it's been raining almost every day of the week since the last time we spoke, and out here
Oh.
in California, that's a whole different deal. We
Mm.
don't like it when it rains for more
Yeah.
than one day in a
You
row
might
out
grow
here.
some grass or something. You
Yeah,
know.
we might grow something, and we just how you talk about your aversion to January weather and how it's all dreary outside. Well,
Oh yeah.
we're the worst out here. All of us are.
Mm.
If it's cloudy for more than one day out here, we're just like, oh my God, it's just
Well,
freaking
yeah,
out.
then you couple that with the news. The news
Yeah.
is freaking everyone out. I mean, way
So
over.
it really is. It really is.
And
Our
I
thing.
don't mean to make light of it. I mean,
No,
it's
no, no,
serious
no.
stuff. I am staying in except for occasional shopping and doing my hands, I mean, I'm conscious every time I touch a door handle or anything. It's like, do not touch anything until you wash your hands and use some sanitizer.
Yep, yep.
Do that, you're going to be fine. And but no, the news I saw yesterday, Merle, that some millionaire, I didn't pull it up on the dailymail.com or .uk or whatever, billionaire William Zach or something just proclaims that this is going to be the end of times. I mean, it was just
Mm.
horrifying what he was saying. The only good takeaway I could leave everybody with is that I go straight to the comments, and most of the comments were like, this guy's crazy. Like, okay, he lost a third of his entire wealth and he's panicked, but all the comments were like that. So it
Yeah.
was encouraging that people weren't really taking the bait, because that's what the media does. They look for the clown who can say the worst possible thing, and that's who they give the airtime to because it creates traffic. It's
Yeah.
ratings.
It,
And
it, it's not only that, it's that the negative news, scary news, it's addictive. It's like a drug. It's like something that we watch and we go, oh my gosh, that's terrible. What else? you
I,
know?
well, and there's natural biological reasons for it because first and foremost, we are programmed for one prime directive, and that is safety. So we
Right.
seek out the worst news so we can protect ourselves from it. So it's really a biological thing. I've
Mm,
read about
mm.
studies on that.
That's interesting. I hadn't thought of it that way
Oh, and
before.
that's why all newscasts always start with the most horrific headline that they can find, so that they got those 2 seconds up front to get you before you change the channel or whatever. So they find the most horrific thing that they can find. Every one of them do that, and so then you're riveted. But they try to leave you on a positive note.
Have you ever seen? Yeah, they do that. Have you ever
Mhm.
seen Ellen DeGeneres's stand-up act where she's talking about the same thing, and she's eating dinner. She's pretending she's eating dinner by the TV, and it comes on and says um, something like, "What you're eating tonight for dinner could kill you. More at 11." And she's like,
It's very
but that's
true.
exactly what they do. That is
That's
exactly
true.
what they do. Well, this whole thing about social distancing and everything, it's funny because the times that I've gone out, I've decided to walk to the store, and it's only a couple of blocks away, and it's a chance for me to get out. Every once in a while it stops raining, so I'm like, okay, it's my chance, and I go out there and I'll see a neighbor, and it's almost like we square off. Hello, hello. And then we
Oh,
kind of
no.
move around each other. Are you good? Yeah, I'm good, man. Like we're all
Uh,
paranoid of each other and everything.
yeah,
I mean,
I
it is
took a
a
walk
different time
yesterday.
now.
It totally is, and it just boy, it blindsided us because even a week ago the conversation was a lot different. It was what Monday my gym closed, and that was like my last connection to real society. And I was going every morning, and I just do my hands in between sets and all that. I frankly wasn't worried at all because I'm very careful following the advice. But now that that's closed, I haven't. And I wanted to say, like, I want to talk about things, productive ways we can
Right.
use our time in isolation. This is leading up to that. So I'm taking this week to try to make whatever mental adjustment I need to make to try to start working out at home for the couple weeks or whatever it's going to be that I need to do it because it takes its toll on me. I mean, first of all, being inside as much as I am already and always have been, I need those breaks getting out, and so now I'm not really getting that. But the exercise too, I've talked a lot about what it does for me mentally is
Yeah.
clears my cobwebs and takes away that anxious kind of kinetic energy so that I can operate better after that. So I need to make that switch. I know that my gym, Planet Fitness, sent out an email and said that they're doing live workouts on Facebook
Yeah.
Live. At
Mine
like
too.
4. I think that's great. I don't like
Yeah.
working out at 4. I like working out in the morning. I just need to find what's going to work for me as a stopgap in that regard. What are your thoughts on? So I took a long walk yesterday, and I think I'll do that this afternoon too when we finish up.
Yeah,
There's that.
I think that's wise. Walking is good. I feel the same way. I mean, our everybody's paradigm, everybody's world is turned upside down, and now it's time for us to be very flexible and try to figure out what works, what doesn't work, and try to fit into a new routine. The worst thing that we can do is sit around and just let our health go downhill. So it's raining here. It's going to rain again here today, but every time the sun comes out, Anne Marie and I are out there going for a walk together. So that's been pretty good.
That's cool.
Yeah, that is pretty cool. You could actually just go up and down the stairs a bunch of times too.
I've
That's
done that before. I've done that before.
that's one thing that you can do. But you're right, man. I mean, this is a time where we've got to figure out different things. I've been seeing in the news where people in Italy who have been quarantined, all of them in their house, and we're seeing pictures
Oh,
of them on their balconies, singing to their neighbors, doing jumping jacks out there all together. That's
oh,
actually pretty cool to see
that
that
is
kind of
cool.
stuff. Very
It is cool.
encouraging.
Yeah,
I
it is.
really believe like that this is a time where we really have a choice here. really all across the world. And the choice is how we're going to deal with this. Are we going to deal with this with the glass is half empty or the glass is half full? And and believe me, the easier choice is the glass is half empty. We've really got to focus on how to keep the glass half full. And I think the thing to do is starting with how we speak to each other. Speaking to your neighbor, the people that we affect the most is the people that are right next door to us, and helping those people out or just an encouraging word goes such a long way. Even you and I speaking to each other, we called each other yesterday, and all we were doing was injecting positive words into each other. Barry, you and I have been friends a long time. I'll never forget meeting you and how we met over at Kevin Titmus's house and where we lived as roommates.
Animal House.
Yeah, it really was. But you know what? The thing that I noticed about you, as much fun as we were having and we were partying and all that kind of stuff, you always have been a positive influence in my life.
Oh, thank you. And you as well, for sure. I mean, we don't try. I think, I think it's just that our chemistry is when we start talking, we get happy. I mean, we see the more positive side of things. There are positive takeaways that we can come away with from this when it's over. And I think we're going to get on top of this a lot sooner than most people think. We're going to be coming out of flu season just naturally very soon.
Right.
And I think people are sufficiently terrified that other than those kids that were all at the beach.
Yeah, can you believe that?
That was kind of crazy.
What's up?
Yeah, I just think, though, when I was in my 20s partying my ass off, I probably would have been one of them. You had all that extra time on your hands and you're invulnerable. You really are a lot more self-centered at that age than you are later on. But I mentioned one thing to you yesterday, Merle, that, while we have this extra time, we talk about trying to stay connected, but physically keeping our distance, just wisely. Hook up the Skype, the Zoom, or the, Boot Camp? I think that's the Google Hangouts. I don't know if that's still a thing. But yeah, go ahead and get connected. Do your FaceTime calls. But get connected. Learn to do some work remotely. And it's going to benefit you long after this is over with. What I really hope is that a lot of companies will finally succumb to overcome the stigma of letting people work from home. Now, I know a lot of people don't do that well. That, there are a lot of distractions, but a hell of a lot of people are a lot more productive at home, like Lisa. And if you could give your workers a couple days a week where they could work from home, not deal with rush hour, not out there impeding on the carbon footprint any more than, we have to, and not being distracted with all the meetings that are, time consuming. It's just to get to and from all these different meetings eats up a lot of your day. So I hope that schools and workplaces do take advantage of remote connection a bit more. I think it's long overdue.
I think so too, and it takes practice, right? This is. I mean, heck, I've worked from home for well over a decade, and I've had really, really good days working at home, and also really bad days working at home as well, where it's hard to get motivated or I get distracted by everything. Yes. But I think that if I can do it, anybody can do it. And, this is an opportunity now for people to put that into practice. One of the things I always told myself is on those bad days where I felt like I really didn't get a lot accomplished is put it behind you. Use it as a learning experience and try something new the next day.
Not only that, but it can be productive to get some of your personal stuff out of the way. If that's what you're getting
Absolutely.
distracted with, you're cleaning the house and that's another very big advantage to remote working. And to give some of these workers that never had that opportunity is you can put loads of laundry in the laundry machine and then come back up and start working. You can get things done. You can go run your errands at lunchtime and stuff like that where you couldn't really before when you're at work. So you can
Yeah,
get a lot done.
to your point, you could be putting a load of laundry in while you're on one of those conference call meetings.
Yeah.
It's amazing how much you can get done while you're on a conference
Yeah.
call. I remember one time I was in a meeting and I decided, I could unload the dishwasher right now. And I forgot to put my phone on mute. And boy, were they upset about that. So much noise.
Clanking around. Oh, that had to be horrible.
Who's doing dishes back there? It sounds like you're in a restaurant. But anyway, I learned my lesson there.
Lisa had one of her first remote meetings. I think it was like Monday or something. And so it's like 10 in the morning or something. Everybody's signing on. And her boss goes, all right, everybody, turn on the cameras so we can see each other. And she goes, Lisa goes, no way. And everybody just started busting up laughing.
Well, that's the whole thing is that, the whole Skype meetings and everything, you don't have to use the camera, and people are a lot more comfortable not using the camera. And because then you could just kind of roll out of bed, put your sweats on and come and be in your meeting, and you can be just as productive. And I remember working for Extension Healthcare. We did that for years. And my CEO, Todd Plesko, went to some kind of seminar where they said, well, something about your communication effectiveness goes up 90% if you can see each other. I don't know if I believe that or not, but
I think there's an increase.
He mandated that we all get on the camera and everybody has to see each other after that. And it was a disaster. I mean, yeah, it didn't really work out because we had a culture of not doing that. And so people were coming on and doing things in front of the camera because they forgot that they were on the camera. So they were doing things with their noses, and then everybody would see like, hey, look at what so-and-so's doing. We'd be, instant messaging each other. Hey, look at so-and-so, look at so-and-so. We're trying not to laugh and everything. But it was a real experience. Everyone was really uncomfortable with it. But to your point, it's a transition period that we're in, and we're doing something different. And just the other day, I hooked up my mom and my stepfather with Skype. I walked them through it and got them on it. And
cool.
We're able to work that out. And they actually do a Bible study every Friday, and so they were concerned about some people are concerned about getting together. And I said, well, look, this could be a really good opportunity for you because you can still do this and not have the liability of, somebody bringing in coronavirus and everybody else getting it. And not only that, but this thing could be spread all over the place. Now you're not restricted by by distance. Anybody can get on to your Bible study. Anne Marie and I could get on while they live in Georgia. We live here in Los Angeles. This is an advantage, and technology was invented for such a time as this.
Yeah, it was supposed to make everything so much easier. And I don't know. I don't think that we've taken proper advantage of a lot of this, just to the point that you're making. So let's discuss a few things that we could do productively during this, what I think is going to feel like a pretty short period of time of this imposed isolation. And I'm coming from mostly the O5O angle. So people that are either working on developing their career or passion or are in it. Okay. So that are self-employed small business people. And I wanted to say, I've been doing a lot of talking to my clients and friends, and nobody's doing anything for a large part, and no one's spending money. So a lot of things have come to a screeching halt. So it's a perfect time to review your Google My Business page. That is the number one. That is the way that you register with Google and let them know that you're out there. So I think most of us probably know that we've had created one at some time, but aren't really sure. So just Google My Business, log in with your Gmail account, your Gmail address, and shore it up. Make sure that your description is accurate across your Google My Business page and your social media profiles. And most importantly, your NAP information. That's NAP, your name, address, and phone number. If there's any inconsistencies there, Google will drop you drastically in the rankings. So make sure that that stuff's good, because that is the number one key to your SEO, your search engine optimization. Now, I could get into all kinds of details about how to tweak it from there, but that's a whole nother story. But the funny thing about search engine optimization is that as we learn more and more about it and get better at it, you still only got those 5 spots on the top of that Google page that everybody's fighting for. Right. So it gets harder and harder to stay in that top 5. That's my point. So it's not something that I could just spew out to you. You know what? Everybody's gotten those emails, how they're going to get you to number 1 in Google rankings. That's not from a U.S. company. That's always from overseas, somebody that's, can't get sued. Because there's no validity. You can't have, if you got 5,000 spots of you and people in a 20-mile radius of competitors, and there's only 5 spots to be had, it's whoever throws the most money at it with the best talented agency that can get you up there.
I like that.
But the quickest way to get you at least rated into consideration, especially like if you're an auto mechanic, something like that. None of those guys take technology seriously at all. If you go and shore up your Google My Business page, and you probably don't even have one, but create one and do it right, spend an hour doing it, that will get you in front of eyeballs, and that will turn into clients. So I think that is one very good piece of advice for the small business owner. I'm going to also mention, we talked about remote working. And I think that we could use that, as we said, on a personal level as well as professional. So get that Skype account up and running, or Zoom. Zoom is very good for doing webinars. And creating a webinar is something that is a very good idea during this time. A quick story, case study to that effect is my friend and client, Brian Hall, does electrical safety training. And so he typically goes into companies and trains like 10 people in that company on their premises, because he can then apply it directly to their particular equipment and all that stuff. It's like an 8-hour class. Well, obviously that came to a screeching. And we were also just working on together promoting off-site training. So he was doing it. He's got 4 of them scheduled at hotels in various places in the United States. So where people from the entire state of Florida can come to this hotel in Orlando, send a worker. Different companies, multiple companies can send a worker to kind of do their in-between training. And so had to cancel all of those for the foreseeable future. So what that means is it's the perfect time where he's been thinking about for a long time how nice it would be to do all of this as a webinar and offer it in that regard as well. So that's what he's working on right now. We were talking about the camera and lighting there the other day. That was Brian that was asking for the webinar.
Oh, that was him. Oh,
yes.
Gotcha.
Yes. Gotcha. So he's going to be sitting in front of his computer recording that stuff, and wanted to know what equipment you were using there. So he's also using Zoom for the webinar. It's a great tool for that. Just briefly, the goal to that is to do that with a few clients up front, do it remotely, so that you're then doing the question and answer period at the end to the point where you have it down. You have all those questions answered. And when after you've done several of them and you nailed that one finally, then you make that evergreen. In other words, you put it on your website. You don't have to keep redoing it live all the time. You can just sell that as an evergreen training program. So
That's pretty cool. Those are great ideas.
That's a really good one. Another one I'm going to say for you small business people, I know that you're all thinking about this and haven't been doing it, but you vaguely heard of sales funnels, and that should start with a freebie. So I will say this, there's a 1 and 2-parter here. I'll start with our social media content. We all have the intention of putting out all this amazing content on our social media channels, and then therefore get all these hits on our website and blogs and generate business. But most of us lose track of the time on doing it. Well, now is a great time. I use Buffer. Buffer is a tool that it has a free version. If I recall, you can use up to 3 different social media accounts like Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram, and you can auto post. You can create posts and schedule
all of them at the same time.
Yes, and schedule them out for the future. And so I think that that's a very pertinent thing to do right now. And the premium version of Buffer, which I use, is about $120 a year, something like that. It's worth it. And now that where people get hung up with this social media content that I'm talking about is, well, what am I going to talk about? Well, I would suggest the mixture of tips on what it is that you offer, whether it's a product or service, and case studies on how you improve someone's life in this regard. So a nice mix of those. And this is what brought me to what I want to talk about now is your sales funnel. So if you've been creating all this content and you're taking this seriously, no, a very basic sales funnel is creating like an ebook. So you offer a free ebook on your site and you promote it on your social media channels. That is maybe 5 to 7 pages that explains some value, how to do something. Hey, what if you're a fitness instructor and you are just known for having this proprietary workout that or a nutrition expert, and you could give a particular diet. So these kinds of things, create an ebook that is valuable enough that people want to download. That gets them in the top of your funnel. All right. It's a freebie. Now you have them on your email list where I suggest that you offer something very small. The first time that you get them to actually buy from you and fill out that credit card information, it has to be like not painful. So, I mean, literally, even if it's a $5 purchase for maybe a more expanded upon book form of whatever it is you're doing, or a video series. Which is a lot easier to do today than ever before, which we know. So that's a good thing to work on. Now that they're in the mid part of your funnel, you then have a chance to sell your more premium products or service to them. So that is something to think about, your content, executing on your content. We have a lot of idle time during this, and get your taxes done early. Now, which is what I've been working on today.
Me too.
Is that right?
I hate it too. We just turned in our package to our accountant. So it's always this daunting thing that's always hanging over you and all. Oh, see, I chased you away talking about that.
See if turning on those lights made any difference, because I don't know why I look so incredibly dark today. I almost always do, but did that help at all? I don't think it did.
No, it didn't. It seems like it didn't seem like it turned on a light at all.
All right.
Anyway, but
taxes.
Taxes. So I thank God that's almost over. Have you heard that they're thinking about extending the tax deadline?
I just read from my accountant literally right before we signed on here that they're not extending the filing deadline, but they're extending the payment deadline to like June,
Oh, it's the
mid-June.
payment deadline. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
that I must have missed that part of it. But hey, if you owe taxes, that's a pretty good thing for you, and I think that's
Sure.
a nice concession right there. But yeah, taxes are a good thing to do right now. Hey, here's another thing. I was talking to my brother right before the show, and he was talking about it, really to go along with what you had said earlier, is nobody wants to buy anything right now,
Right.
but it's a good time to stay in touch with your customer base. And what he's doing is he's making phone calls and just making sure that everybody has what they need right now. He's not selling anything. He's just checking in on them and making sure they have everything that they need to go forward.
I think that's a great idea. Just to get a touch, you got a reason to just touch them, and you need to do that regularly as a salesperson.
The other thing that he's doing, which I think is smart, is asking, well, how are you all dealing with this whole situation right now? Now, that's twofold. One is that it shows the interest and that starts a conversation, but he can get information from them and share with other clients. Hey, here's what other people are doing to be able to get through this. And I think that's a good idea. Number two is that we all have like our LinkedIn people that are in our network, and we always think about, oh boy, I should reach out to these people. I have a lot of people that are in there. This is a good time to reach out to people that are on your LinkedIn. And the reason I know this is because several people have reached out to me just to see how I'm doing through this whole thing and touching base. And I think that's a beautiful way to keep in touch. And it shows you that it's not just a business relationship. You really care about people. And I just, as a patriot of America, I just think that that's the spirit of America, is that we just, we care about it. We genuinely care about our fellow man, and when we're doing business, we actually care about them personally. And I think that people do business with people that they know care. And so when this whole thing blows over, and it's going to blow over, that's going to help us all out. Unity's the thing, and this really helps with that.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. Very well said. I think that we all need to reduce the anxiety a whole bunch and put each other at ease, just as you're saying right there. I didn't want to forget this, and I just remembered. So I want to give a shout out that tomorrow we're having our first guest podcaster, a guest speaker, and it is Marques Ogden, and he is an author of the Success Cycle book, and he's a motivational speaker as well, a former NFL player, and riches to rags to riches story. He was a very successful NFL player. He then started a very successful construction business, lost everything, and just really had a come to Jesus moment, so to speak. Few years, worked really hard, and has done extremely well for himself. I can't wait to talk to him. So that's tomorrow. Oh, come on.
I love those kinds of stories. I mean, the fact is that we all have times of great success, and then also great failure as well, and challenges. And, being able to hear a story of somebody that's been able to pick themselves up and actually forge ahead and be successful, that's so needed right now, I think. And I'm really looking forward to Marques.
Yeah, me too. And that made me think of a quote. So I'm about halfway through his book right now. I don't think I'll get it done by tomorrow, but he quoted, I think it's Warren Buffett. He goes, when I read this, he goes, it just emblazoned into my brain, and I never forgotten it. Warren Buffett said that he never wants to do business with someone that's never failed at least 3 times. And he goes, think about that. He goes, not once did somebody completely fail, pick themselves back up, and then climb to the top again, but they did that 2 more times. He goes, the character that builds. He goes, we had talked about this before, and I think this needs to be said over and over again. You have got to fail to achieve any success. That's where you learn your biggest lessons by far, and toughen up. You get a hell of a lot more wise, a lot more efficient, frugal, and there was another adjective that just escaped me, but the knowledge. It builds a lot of character and a lot of wisdom.
It
So
really
yeah.
does. And doesn't it seem like people that come from an athletic point of view, they seem to really get that a lot better. I just remember my own
Yes.
experiences and having successes and failures. And it's so great when you're the champ and you get to
Yeah.
experience that. But don't you learn so much more working through failure and working through loss?
As long as you don't let it beat you up and psychologically dominate you.
You need to
Yeah.
have a good coach in those situations, don't
Yeah.
you?
Yeah.
And
That a good
coaches make
mentor.
all the difference. Yeah.
Yeah, and I've been fortunate to have some really good personal mentors in my life. I would consider you amongst them. And business-wise, I've had a couple as well. And I do very much believe in business coaching. I think that it's a very big market today. I think it's a very valid market for a lot of people our age to go out into. But you pretty much need to have the experience of having a good coach too. So there's that end of thing.
You're making me think about an experience that I had in high school. I in track. I ran track all 4 years of high school, and I had this fantastic coach, Coach Robinson, and
Mm.
what a good man he was. He was always very positive and upbeat. He when you had some type of failure, he was always there to motivate and encourage you. He believed in us. That was the big thing, is that he believed in us. And
Yeah.
I remember we had won. I was in something called the Suburban League, and we had won the Suburban League championship my freshman and sophomore year. And then in my junior year, when I was really contributing to the team and scoring points, I came down to the last meet, and it actually came down to the last event, which was the mile relay. And their guy tripped our guy. We all saw it happen,
Hmm.
and but the referee
Wow.
didn't actually see it, and the other team ended up winning. It was the
Mm.
craziest thing. We had the two biggest track teams in the league. There was like 100 guys on each team, and it almost turned into a brawl, like a rumble in the middle of the football field. You wouldn't
Mm.
think track people would be like that, but it was
All right.
crazy. And it
All
was an
right.
away meet. So I remember on the way back home, I sat next to the coach. People were crying and everything. I mean, it was
Uh,
utter. It was just like
mm.
on Wide World of Sports, the agony of defeat. And boy, did we ever feel that. And you know, for me, it was motivating. Man, I was so angry that this had happened, and I wanted revenge. I wanted to
Mm.
get back. And I told my coach on the bus ride home, next year we're winning this, guaranteed, coach. There's no way we're going to lose this. And he actually made me the track captain the next year. And it came down to the final track meet against the same team, and it was
Oh.
this time it was in our house, and it came down to my event, which I ran the 800.
Oh my
And I
God.
remember that my coach came to us right before our event, which was about two-thirds of the way through the actual track meet, and he told us that if we were to come in first, second, and third, that we would clinch the win and we'd win the Suburban League
Mm.
championship. And this was one of the greatest moments of all time. I remember I was so nervous. I wanted my dad to come and see this meet
Uh-huh.
so badly, and he had told me that he had a big meeting. He was a VP at Ameritech, and he had a big meeting that day, and there was no way that he
Mm.
could make it. And I remember
Ah.
moments before they shot the gun, I heard this familiar whistle, and I looked up, and there was my dad in the corner of the track waving his arms. He made it. And
You sure you didn't see this on a movie? I think
you
I've
know,
seen this movie.
it was just like, we should make a movie out of this, because I remember coming around. He was on the back stretches where he was standing, and I remember coming around the first stretch, and I was probably about in sixth place at the time. But by the time I had come around the second time, there was one guy in front of me, and I heard my dad say, "Get him, Merle. like that. And that's when I was about 300 yards from the finish line. And that's when I put my kick on. And usually I didn't do that until 200 yards. But my dad, just as soon as I heard my dad, I was just filled with all this adrenaline. And I just poured it on, a full sprint from that point on. Well, my teammates, two of my teammates, Matt and Dave, were right behind me. They followed me on that kick. We came in first, second, and third and won the Suburban League Championship. Man, that was one of the great, and my coach was right there, just like elated. We were all elated. I mean, it was like an amazing time, but it all stemmed from failure. We had our pictures in the paper the next day and everything, winners of the Suburban League. Man, this kind of stuff. Thank God my dad was there. That was so cool. We talked that for the rest of his life. But those are the kinds of things that, you can experience those same kinds of experiences in business, in your personal life, in your marriage, with your kids. You can use these things to catapult yourself to extreme success. And I've always thought back on those moments when I've had failures in business, and how I was able to not only help myself to win, but my whole team was motivated. And we ended up winning the Suburban League Championship, and we took the trophy home. But man, these are the things that help you to go higher and higher and higher, not just in that experience alone, but in life itself. And as I've said many times on this show, man, the worst defeats, the worst failures I've had have always turned out to be the greatest things that have happened to help me to have success. And as we're talking about over 50 starting over, there's so many people that have been sent home. I just talked to another guy, a coworker of mine at Vocera, that just got let go this week, and he called me up to just talk about it and everything. He said, "I know this happened to you. We haven't talked in a long time, but I've been listening to your show, and it's really motivating. I just wanted to say thanks for that. And what can I do?" And what you can do is use that. Use those feelings. Those feelings can be actually your seeds of success. He already said he had some things that were lined up for him and everything, but use those things as success. I had another experience where I was working for this company called Emergent, and the stock market crashed back at the end of 2008 and 2009. And I was doing really well at this company, And all of a sudden, the company Phillips said, we're going to lay off 5,000 people. They're a huge company, as you know. And I thought, well, I'm safe because look at my numbers. I'm well above quota and everything. The next day, they called me up and laid me off. Man, was I upset about that. And as you know, I went through this whole period where I was trying to find myself. I almost beat up a homeless guy. All this crazy stuff happened, but then I ended up running this thing. Anyhow, long story short, I started working for a competitor of that company. And man, I had this vendetta. I went after that. They were the market leader, the other company, Phillips. I went after them like you wouldn't believe, and ate their lunch. And man, we killed that company, at least that part of the company. And it was such a delight. We all made a lot of money doing it. We had fun. We laughed all the time, even as we were standing out and competing in RFPs and getting ready. And we were so lighthearted and had a good time. We didn't take ourselves too seriously, and I think that's a key. But don't take yourself too seriously.
I want to shine a light on the key takeaway there for anybody that may have faded out. But if you got let go by someone during this hard time and you just feel it was very unjust, maybe seek out the competitor, and you got all the drive in the world to go out there and kill, in your sales, looking for your motivation. There it is.
It was a big one for me, that's for sure. Yeah. And it was a friendly competition too, because I loved all the people that were still there at the other company. It's just that through that whole defeat and through that pain, I'd learned a few things that they hadn't learned, and I used those things to my advantage. And That's the whole thing when you're starting over. We could get ourselves down, but even through this whole experience with coronavirus, there are things we can take from this if
Oh,
we're
absolutely.
looking for them. I think I was talking to you yesterday about how remember, I'm sure there's a lot of people our age that used to go to the dentist when they were little kids, and there would be that magazine called Highlights there. And my favorite thing in that magazine was there's always like a big picture of like a nature scene, trees and parks and stuff like that. But there was a key down at the bottom where it would say there were these objects that were hidden inside of the picture that you would never see if you weren't looking for them. And it was so fun to, oh, there's a four-leaf clover in there, and you'd look and you'd find it in the bark of the tree or something like that.
Sure.
Well, that's the whole thing. If you're looking for it, you're gonna see it. If you're looking for positive in the midst of darkness, guess what? You're gonna find it. I mean, there's an adage in the Bible that says, "Seek and you will find; knock and I will answer." If we're looking, we're gonna find it. Keep on keeping on. That's the message.
Well, and you mentioned before about the power of the spoken word. I want to just take that a tiny bit further and say, I touched on how business-wise you could shore up your social media accounts right now with some good content. But I just wanted to just say on a personal level, please be careful about what you're doing on social media right now. It's such a negative place by nature. We kind of get very primal, hiding behind our keyboards and our screens, and so it's easy for us, especially when we're a little bit anxious and a little bit agitated during this time. It's easy for us to kind of want to just get rid of a little bit of that frustration online, maybe stir the pot a little bit and then act like it's everybody else's problem that you didn't do it. So I just want to say maybe don't be fake, but maybe just try to keep it encouraging. And I'd always suggest keeping it in moderation as well. Social media can really be a rabbit hole that you can get sucked down. And the tests show it's directly correlated with depression, that people with higher amounts of time on social media have higher incidences of depression. So I think now is very prudent to think about how we're using our social media.
To go along with that, Barry, you talked about those kids that are down at spring break, and I heard one of them saying, "Oh, if I get corona, I get corona." But it's not going to stop me from partying. And but the thing that kid isn't thinking, and by the way, I think I probably would have been the same way back then as well.
Yes,
I admit it. But what he's not thinking about is that maybe he does get coronavirus, but then he comes home and he gives it to his parents or he gives it to his grandfather, and these are the things that you really have to be careful of. Right. And it's our duty to not allow that to happen. Well, the same things with your words is that your words, we sometimes think that our words are just for ourselves, but really our words are actual seeds. And when we use our words, they have an impact on everyone around us, whether it's on social media or if it's over the telephone or outside when you're talking to your neighbor. These are seeds. And we should be using these seeds for good right now. I mean, one of the things that the unfortunate thing, as you and I have talked about before during this time of trouble that we're having in the United States, is that it's an election season. Yeah. And during the election season, people get super partisan. And I say that at this point, we should really be avoiding that as much as possible. We should be, Agreed. It's okay to talk about politics. I don't think that's a bad thing to do, but I think we should speak about it in a way that actually lifts other people up, and that we're using our words to spread ideas that are going to help our fellow man. And I've seen examples of that on social media. And then what I've seen is that a bunch of people come in and then they just become super partisan and try to shoot that person down. And I think that's a shame. I think that it's a character issue, right? I
Yeah.
think right now we all have to rise to a higher level of character. And when
Hmm.
we see somebody on social media that's really trying to pull people together in unity, I think it's up to us to come in and cheer that person on. And maybe we don't even agree with what they're saying, but
Hmm.
there's a way to disagree with someone and still uplift that person in the same manner
Hmm.
without attacking that person's character.
And you can only do that when you're doing it in moderation, because I see myself doing it. The rare occasions I'm going on Facebook these days, the more I scroll, the more I'm like starting to get agitated. It's like, oh, I got to get off this thing. It's you can
Yeah.
only read so much negativity before it gets to you. So if you want to be that person that shares a little bit of positivity on there, you're going to have to do it in controlled doses, I think. Otherwise, the infection spreads.
Well, here's the thing too, is that a lot of these people can be our family members,
Mm,
and we see that all the time as well. And one of the things that I've been thinking about is how to deal with those types of situations where you're dealing with somebody that's constantly dwelling in the negative. And one thing that I found has been helpful is that you can change the mode by maybe finding a way to compliment that person, even if they're being negative. Or, one
mm,
of the things that I believe is that love conquers all, and
agreed.
find a way to love on that person, even if you disagree with what they're saying. You might just say, listen, you and I may never agree on this subject, but I just want you to know that I love you, and I'm thinking about you, and praying for your family as well. And good luck to you, because we've got bigger fish to fry right now. And I think that changes the course of the whole thing. It says in the Bible again, love covers a multitude of sins, and
Yeah.
somebody's got to have the guts to go out there and just allow that to happen, because
Mm,
it's much harder, especially when somebody says something so disparaging and it gets into your chest here, and you're just like,
mm,
ah. It's so much harder to think through that and say, you know what, it's not worth destroying our friendship over this, or
right.
allowing myself to have negative thoughts about this person, even with strangers. I was telling you yesterday about how I used to work at Geauga Lake, and an amusement park in Ohio, and how people could be super mean to me over there. I mean, it was crazy. And I get it. I worked in a carnival game.
I was gonna say you gotta understand. Yeah, you're
Yeah,
ripping
yeah. I
people
mean,
off all day.
it was a carnival game, and it's so funny because people would come up to me and they'd say, I worked in the dime pits, and they'd say, this is a ripoff. And I'd go, well, all right. And then they'd go, how much does it cost? As they're reaching into their pocket. And then when they would lose, they would be so mad at me, and they'd call me all these names and everything, even the N word. And I just had this attitude that I'm just not going to let these people get me down. And I would smile first off at them, which would be shocking to them. They weren't expecting that. Sometimes I would tell them that I loved them. And, you know, I can't say that worked every time to cause the person to come back around. But you know what? I felt a lot better when they left, as they were talking to themselves, leaving my game. It was all about, hey, if you can keep your sanity by staying in that position of love of
Mm.
your fellow man, you'll have so much more strength to deal with any adversity, including the ones that we're going through right now. And the bottom line is, we're going to make it through this.
Oh
We've
yeah.
made it through so many things in the past before. This country has dealt with so many different adversities.
Mhm.
This one actually pales in comparison to so many of the historical things that America has actually fought through.
It's a great opportunity for those of us that may see ourselves or just naturally have leadership inclinations to gently step up and say the positive things, be the positive light, and show forgiveness in front of other people, that to help calm the general the general mood of the population when we're out and when we're again on social media. We're being called to action. Of course, there's a lot of talk that this is like we're in war right now. Well, it is. It very much is. We're being called upon as American citizens right now, and we have to be our better selves. And
Yeah.
yeah, take what we can. Find our deeper maturity right now, and don't succumb to the negativity, which the media is just so negative. That's really easy to do. Merle, as we're winding down here, still a couple of things that I wanted to talk about. One, I'm a big NFL guy, and who knows if we're even how much of the season is going. Oh, what am I saying? The season doesn't start for a long time. It'll be fine. Quarterback Tom Brady left the Patriots and went to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Did you know that?
I heard. Yeah, I heard about that.
I am just floored by that. He's going to be 43 by the time the season starts. And the real curious thing to me is, how is Brady going to do without Belichick? And how is Belichick going to do without Brady? That is what I'm dying to see next season. I am. I mean, Tampa Bay has never had a very good team.
Never. They have one. They've been to the Super Bowl at least once, right?
Yeah,
but I mean, but for the most part, they've been a joke.
Yeah. They're supposed to have a top 5 defense now, and they're supposed to have, I think, a couple good receivers. So, I mean, Brady went there for a very good reason. He said that he wants to do, I think, all his own play calling, or at least have a large say in the play calling, which I would be like, no problem. Remember the Bernie Kosar era? Kosar be there. Yeah, drawing up plays in the dirt, that kind of thing.
Yeah,
those
just like
were the
in the backyard. Yep. Oh,
if I was to get Tom Brady, I would be like, yes, you could call your own plays, definitely. Right. The other thing is he gets a say on the roster, so draft and free agents. That's kind of major. That's LeBron James stuff right there. He is the LeBron James of football, I suppose. But it's like, wow. I think it's a big deal. As an NFL guy, I can't wait to see how it unfolds, because I would think my strongest feelings are that at 43, rather than starting over with maybe a mediocre to above average team, how many more years do you think you got?
Yeah.
I would think you'd just retire and go out on top, but he might be one of those guys who just can't,
Remember John Elway in that last Super Bowl that he won, and he was in his 40s, and they won that Super Bowl, and I'll never forget the play where he ended up, he faded back to pass, and I think they were on like the 10-yard line, and he decided to run for it. And he makes, I don't know if he made the touchdown or he came very close, but he got hit hard and he spun like a helicopter in the air and hit the ground. And I remember it was at that point that I knew that Denver was going to win. I knew they were going to win the Super Bowl that year. It was like the inspiration that gave the team, that this old man was not afraid to just get out there and make it happen, and put his whole body out there. That was really impressive. And I got to say, John Elway, after the drive in Cleveland that we saw, it was really hard to like John Elway.
Sure.
But I'll never forget that moment. That
was
an amazing moment. I respected him too. And at the same time, it was hard not to, want to get a punching bag and put his face on it because he made us look so silly in Cleveland.
Yeah. And sorry, John, but you got a face that you want to punch anyway. But
yeah, he does.
He's, by all accounts, seems like a great guy, and he had an it factor where he didn't look like finesse. Nobody would mistake him for Joe Montana,
No.
But he had a toughness that he could come back in a game and just pull it out against all odds. I mean, I don't know how else to describe it.
And he was a tough quarterback. He was a big guy. He could take a hit all of his career, but here he was now in his 40s. He couldn't take the hits like he used to. He wasn't as fast as he used to be, but still, it was all heart. I kind of feel the same way about Tom Brady, too. I mean, I have this bias because of Belichick, and I don't like Belichick at all. And Tom Brady's been associated with them.
Sure.
And the only reason
That's what
I don't know Belichick personally. It's just because of the whole Cleveland
Yeah,
debacle that
sure.
really still ticks me off. But yeah, and so Tom Brady is it's like he's too good, darn it,
He
But he
is,
is
man.
43 years old. You're right. How much longer does he have? And could this be his last hurrah, or could this actually be a big embarrassment? We don't
It could
know.
be.
It's yet to
I
be determined.
I think it's a big risk. I really do. I mean, a big risk to his legacy because he
Right.
could be going out on top right now, and it could be really embarrassing this year. It could be.
I remember the first athlete that I saw do this, and it ended up being a big embarrassment. Growing up, my dad was really into boxing, and that meant I became
I
a
was
big
too.
boxing fan. And I loved Muhammad Ali.
Mm.
And
Oh, he was some.
my dad actually kind of looked like Muhammad Ali. He's a great big guy too, and just that sense of humor Muhammad Ali had, and same with my dad. And so a lot of times when I'd see him in there, it would just be like my dad was in there. And I remember at the end of his career when he retired like twice and then came back, and the last time he came back, it was terrible.
Mm.
And I thought that would damage his legacy for life, but you know what? It only did for a little while, and he
Yeah,
was still revered all the way to the end of his life. So
yeah, for
who
sure.
knows? Who knows?
We'll see.
Good
As
luck
I
to Tom.
was thinking, about it, you know what I think? A probable huge reason for Brady going on is that he wants to prove to everybody that he can do this without Belichick. That's
Well,
what I think.
I think that that's a big factor, but as we both know in the NFL, it's all about the Benjamins. And I heard that he's just was able to score a ginormous contract with the
Oh,
Buccaneers. So hey,
okay.
you
I
got
never
that
even
going
thought
on
of that.
too.
Yeah, I never even thought about that. All right, finally, we're at an hour in 1 minute.
Oh my gosh.
So I just heard, as I was driving around, that Tulsi Gabbert pulled out of the race. Finally.
It's so funny that the media completely ignored her. You
Because she's
almost didn't even
anti-establishment.
remember that she was in the race to begin with.
Yeah, but so it got me thinking, what do you think? If you were Biden, wouldn't you be trying to pick her up on your ticket like immediately?
You know what? It's interesting you're asking me that. If I were Biden, that's what I would do, but I
Mhm.
don't think he's going to do that. And here's why: because he has moved, and it's really because of Bernie Sanders. He's moved so far to the left.
Mm,
And the reason is because he's trying to capture that Bernie Sanders
right,
crowd. And he knows that was the mistake that Hillary made, was she was not able to capture the Bernie Sanders crowd, and then she really didn't. That's how she lost the election. So right now,
might have
Biden
had a
can't.
little something to do with those emails too.
Well, I think there's a lot of things there, but that Bernie crowd didn't show up en masse to vote for Hillary, and that was a big crowd. And
Agreed.
so I think that Tulsi really representing
Moderate.
the very moderate,
Mhm.
that might actually work against Joe Biden. You asked me a question a few weeks ago, when there were so many people that were in the race, which one would I vote for if I had to
Oh,
vote for
right.
one of them? And I thought about that. I said I couldn't answer it because I
Yeah.
wouldn't vote for any of them. I'd stay home. But you know what? I think I would have voted for Tulsi Gabbard.
Yeah, agreed. She's just anti-establishment. That's all day long. So do you think he's going to try to get Warren then?
Oh my gosh. I I hope not. I'm
I
so
know.
tired of hearing from her, but
I
he
am too.
has said that he's going to vote for a woman. And
Mhm.
then in that last debate they said that he said he was guaranteed he's going to have a woman as a vice president, and then they got all excited and they asked Bernie Sanders, Biden has just committed to this, will you commit to the same thing? And he had to say, whoa, well, yeah, probably. But I have a problem with this. I don't have a
No
problem with a
kidding.
woman being a vice president, but
Sure.
shouldn't they be looking at who's the best qualified person,
Oh,
whether it's a man or a woman? I mean,
it fries
what's
my
the
ass.
deal?
Oh,
I
it's so
know.
hypocritical. They're
I think so.
obsessed. absolutely obsessed with race and sexism and all of that, to the point where they just become exactly that themselves. They paint
I
themselves in
agree.
the corners all day long.
Yep. Yep.
Well,
Well,
hey,
see what
I
happens.
want to mention, please go to over50startingover.com to see our latest videos and sign up for our podcast. Please share, spread the love. We'd like to reach more people, and comment. Go to our YouTube channel at Over 50 Starting Over, or of course over50startingover.com, and you'll see the mail link. And any parting words, Merle?
Hey, I just say be good to your neighbors.
Yeah.
If there are elderly people in your neighborhood, offer to help them out. Go to the grocery store for them. Those are the high risk people. And again, have a positive expectation of the future, and positive things are going to happen.
Perfect words, man. So I'm going to see you tomorrow when we
Yep.
interview Marques Ogden. I can't
Looking
wait.
forward to it. Me
All
too,
right, buddy.
Barry. Me too.
See ya. Have a great
See you.
night.